Alright, so what are we going to be doing today?
Normal color.
Normal cut? So just low fade, and then on top, do you want to take a little bit or a lot off?
The majority off, and then a little bit on the side as well.
Okay. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come around my 00. Now, I don't recommend this if you're still newer to fading, just because some people are going to have a hard time doing the 00 line and everything like that. I've been mixing it up to be able to show people a bunch of different ways to cut hair. So right now I'm just going to come in with a 00, clean everything up on the bottom. This technique is really cool if you are more accustomed to like wanting to see a cleaner canvas as you're working through it. Sometimes I like doing the 0 first because it's a lot easier to blend out. After a long time of cutting, you can kind of pick either way to cut hair and you'll be good with both. So on my other video, I really didn't start off too much, or in a lot of other my videos, I won't start off too much with the 00, but for the sake of just content, I'm gonna go ahead and show you all how to do a 00 fade starting it. So right here, again, just getting all this cleaned up. Wherever I do that, I'll just come in with my shaver as well, so I can kind of get it cleaned up. Now I'm not gonna go all the way to the line with the shaver. What I'm gonna do is stay just a little bit underneath it. I don't want to create a whole new line, just trying to blend out the bottom of the skin to be just a little bit shorter. Now whenever you're doing a fade with the 00 on the bottom and the 00 being your first line, I usually like coming in with my clipper with the clipper open first. So that way I create a line, almost like a half line. So this is considered a half, because the clipper open would be a half, the clipper closed is considered a 0. So I'm gonna come around and just follow the guideline I've already created with the clipper open and work my way all the way around towards the back. Now right here, so now I have my top guideline and my bottom guideline. So the top guideline is to help me understand how much room I have to blend out that bottom line. So I'm going to go ahead and close my clipper up 2 clicks, about halfway. And now as you see, I'm going to stay a little closer to that bottom line. And I'm not going to go all the way into that top line. I'm going to just come right towards the bottom end of that top line, because this is the in-between that I'm trying to soften out. So as I soften it out, you'll see the bottom line slowly starts to transition away. It's not going to completely fade out because that bottom line is again with a 0 or 00. And right now this is only fading at about a quarter. I'm going to go 1 click further down. And now I'm going to continue to stay even closer to that bottom line and further from that top line. I'm just going to go ahead and carry that over all around. And again, now you can see the line is slowly starting to fade off on that bottom end of it. Now I'm going to close my clipper completely. Depending on how set your clippers are and what kind of blade you're using on your clipper, this could be a little bit easier for others than it is for some. Because again, the blade I'm using is a fade blade that has a real thin base on this back end. A lot of barbers, if you use the taper blade, it won't have that. It'll have a little bit more of a lift here, and that top won't be as thin. Having a thin top helps me connect into that 00 with just my 0. The other part of it is too, guys, is when you're creating that 00 line, you want to make sure you're not marking it real heavy-handed. If you saw when I was doing my 00 earlier, I wasn't pushing in very hard. I was kind of floating off the skin, and I didn't have it upside down. Some barbers will use their T-edger upside down to mark their first guide. I strongly recommend against that, only because that line is even harder to take off. All right, so next step that I want to do is I'm going to go up to my 1.5 guard. I'm always going to start off with it open. So I'm going to go ahead and just come in with my 1.5 guard open. I'm going slightly above the line I've already created. It's never going to be the exact same as far as like, oh, I'm going to go up 1 inch or ½ an inch or anything like that. A lot of that is going to be determined on the amount of hair they have, their skin complexion, and then the density of the hair that they have. So they can have a lot of thin hair, a little thick hair, or a mix of both. So I'm going to be very careful when I'm doing my 1.5. I'm kind of just following my own guide that I can see, like where I will be able to kind of connect this in or where I won't. So if I feel his hair's thinner, I might stay a little tighter with these guides. His hair's a little bit on the thicker side, so I might go a little further with them. So right here again, 1.5 open. And again, leaving a soft exit line, meaning that I'm not marking a harsh 1.5 line. I'm kind of just floating off the skin lightly. Here I'm going to go ahead and close the clipper completely. Earlier I was closing it about halfway and then a quarter and then a quarter. But on these bigger guards, you're not going to have to do it as much. Right here, again, I'm just cutting underneath that first top guide I've created so that I could tighten up everything on the bottom. So that way that bottom line is that much easier to take off. And I'm trying to be as efficient as I can with my guards, because I don't want to have to use guards too many times on the same haircut. All right, so now I have my clipper open line and my 1.5 line. So here I like to come in with my half guard completely open. Remember, a half with the clipper open is going to be about a 1, so it shouldn't really connect that line all the way out. But if you use your stroking motion out enough when you are cutting, you can almost connect into that 1.5. But don't detail yourself too much right now at this point in the haircut, because you still got a 1 guard that's going to come help you later. So all I'm going to do here is make a slight connection into the top, but I don't worry too much if I'm not able to completely take out that top part of the line. What I'm really trying to do is just soften out this bottom area so this bottom line begins to slowly fade away. So right here, again, 1.5. I have the half guard open. Now I'm going to go ahead and close it up 2 clicks. And then again, the more I close it, the further away from the top line I'm going to be staying, and the closer towards that bottom line I'm going to continue to stay. So right here, again, we're at a quarter closed more. And now I'm going to close it 1 more quarter. And again, just continuing to stay towards the bottom end of this haircut, where that line is with my clipper open. And then close it completely. And then when I close it completely, I'm going to pay a lot of attention to what the work I'm doing, because I'm really trying to get that bottom line out as best as I can without creating a line. Right here I see a little bit of a dip, so I'm going to go in just with the corner of my clipper. I'm not going to go in with my complete clipper blade, because I don't want to create a new line and then mess up the haircut I'm already doing and then take the whole fade higher and have to do everything again. So whenever you're getting to a certain area where it feels difficult to cut into and you don't want to go too high with the fade, always know that you could turn your clipper on its side and point cut into the fade, so that way any dark spots you can kind of work on them. But I'm not going to detail too much right now. It's kind of way too early in the haircut for that. I do want to get a good amount of work done for now, but I do want to be moving through my steps efficiently, so that way I don't spend too much time on something that I'm going to come back and detail anyways. There we go. Now at this point, depending on what your skill set is, you could do clipper over comb, you could do guard work. I'm going to be using the guard work to kind of help me out for a lot of like younger students and stuff like that. I show this technique more. So I'm going to go ahead and have my 5 guard open. I'm just going to lightly connect into what he already has. When I do this 5, I'm not trying to create a new line. I'm just trying to create a form of connection so that I know what this 1.5 line has to be blended into. And I'm going to just work my way down from the 5. And again, as you see, when I'm doing the 5, I'm not really creating a new line. I'm just sort of blending into what he already has, which is great, because then I could trim the top like he asked me to. But now I have a connecting point, which is the toughest part for most barbers to get, is a connecting point. So, I mean, here my client, he gets haircuts pretty often. So it's pretty cool. It helps me out so that I don't have to worry about doing a huge transformation on top. I'll try to get more content out on that soon. But here I'm going to go ahead and close the 5 up now. Again, I'm always starting with my guard open and then working it down to closed. And with these bigger guards, as I stated earlier, you don't have to worry about using the halfway mark and the quarter mark anymore. You can kind of just burn through them. So from the 5, I'm going to go ahead and jump down to the 3 guard. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the 3 open. And again, the 3 open should help me connect almost into that 5, but using a smooth stroking motion, just like that, that's what helps really connect those guards together. So above the 3, you can pretty much skip guards. I usually do like a 3, 5, 7 if I'm ever using big guards, depending on the length of guard I need. But right here, I know that with a 5, I was going to be able to connect into it. If you're not too confident on what you're doing on that part, go ahead and just start off with a 7. But here, again, now I've closed my 3, and I'm continuing to work my way down to that 1.5 guide that I had earlier. See, and now doing that, I can kind of see a little bit of a line here. But that's why I'm telling you, I didn't want to focus too much too early, because I won't know how the haircut's looking until I have a more finished picture. With the 3 done, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my 2 now. After the 3 guard, I really don't like skipping guards, especially depending on like what you charge and everything like that. I get that being efficient is important, but there are certain guards I don't think you should skip. Anything under the 3 are those guards to me. So again, right here, I'm starting off with it open. And then I'm gonna close it up a little bit. You can close it up about halfway or completely. This is gonna depend more on you and how well you are at rocking the clipper back and forth on the head. And again, it's leaving a soft exit point for your guard so that way it doesn't leave a harsh line on the top part of it. For most barber students, what I teach them is at this point, you could just walk all your guards down one by one. So this would be the only time I start using guards twice, once I've pretty much done everything once. So keep in mind, I haven't used the 1 guard yet, and the 1 guard's gonna help me out right now. But if you're new to this, if you're still learning, go ahead and just throw the 1.5 guard on first, start off with it open, and then just progressively work your way down and shade the fade down as you see fit. This is where a lot of barbers are able to stretch the blend and really see like a more overall finish. So right here, again, I'm just coming in, I have it completely closed, and I'm listening to pay attention for any hair that's getting cut and making sure that I'm not taking the fade higher, but so that the fade can kind of stretch out. And again, this comes back to what we were talking about earlier. Some people are gonna have darker hair and lighter skin complexion. Some people are gonna have lighter hair and darker skin complexion. So the stretching of this fade is gonna be determined between those factors, apart from how much hair he has. But now that I see it more completed, I can see where I want to stretch certain things out further than I did earlier. And that's why I tell barbers, don't really spend too much time on certain parts of the haircut until you have a more completed picture, because it's hard to detail something when you don't have the overall look. So right here, again, now I'm just using the 1 guard. Start off with it open to be safe. And then I'm just rocking it back and forth. And I'm trying to listen to any hair getting cut. Now I can close it up about the total blade amount. So now I'm at a 1. Earlier, the 1 open is considered a 1.5. And I have a 1.5 guard also. So it does get a little confusing, guys. If you need any help with that, go ahead and mention it in the comments and I'll try to get back to that more. But right here, I am just using the 1 guard closed. And again, just any little detail area, that's what I'm working on right now. So as I said earlier, I am gonna wanna try to do every guard on the way back down once I get past the 3 guards, working down to the 2, the 1.5, the 1, and then the half. So this is the half guard. I'm gonna have it open, and now you're gonna start seeing those little lines at the very bottom that started popping out more once I started working the top of that haircut down. Now I'll spend a little more time detailing, because this is the part in the haircut where I feel it's worth it to really detail out, because again, I'm looking at an overall more finished haircut. So right here I have the half guard halfway closed. And again, I'm just listening to make sure if I am cutting any type of hair that I do have a soft exit point with the guard. Again, I'm always rocking it off, so that way I don't ever create a harsh line. And I'll close it up 1 more click. And then again, just continuing to stretch out the fade. And close it completely. And right here, again, now I'm starting to see that line really fade out. You want to try to get as much work done as you can with the half guard on, because once you take the half guard off, it's a real risky part of the hair cutting process, because now you can create a whole new line. So right here on this line, that little area, I'm going to try to do as much as I can with the half guard, because sometimes a lot of barbers will see a line and then just try to fade it out there. Sometimes the weight above it is the reason that it's looking like a dark shadow. So I'm going to really try to emphasize that right now, because again, I want to do as much work as possible with the half guard before coming back to my clipper completely without a guard, or my clipper without a guard. So now I can see that little bit of a line that's messing with me, and on the whole haircut I can see where it sticks out. So now I'm going to go ahead and get my clipper open and just shade it down slowly. So at this point, you could be a lot more detailed with what you're doing, because again, this is when it makes the most sense. I tell a lot of my students, you wouldn't start detailing like your car if you still had a bunch of like mud on the rims and a mud on the roof and stuff like that. You wouldn't want to start spot detailing it. You want to get everything cleaned up to the most that you can, and then begin to detail. So that's what I'm doing right here. This haircut's pretty much really fairly done. And now you can see that little shadow starting to go away. So So at this point, I'll just go click by click and work in the areas that I don't like the haircut. So that way, I get a nice smooth transition of shading and blending, so that way the fade begins to look a lot cleaner, a lot blurrier, however you want to refer to it. Go one click at a time each time. And again, this is when you should be detailing, because now I can see the problems that that little bit of weight was creating for the haircut, and now the haircut's really starting to look nice. So again, and you're talking about this is taking me like less than 15 minutes total time, and that's with talking and everything like that. I usually finish most of my haircuts in about 30 minutes or less. Obviously, when I do tutorials, I try to take a little bit more time on it so I can be more descriptive to you. But just so we can see, the fade is pretty much done. And I'll go ahead and get the other side done, and I'll show you back when I get to the top. You said how much did you want to take off the top? But do you want me to thin it also, or just trim?
A little trim.
Trim and thin, or just trim?
Trim and thin if you want.
Okay, cool. Yeah, whatever you want. I got you. All right, so what most people do is they want to just trim the hair all even. And the thing is, when you're doing a comb over, guys, you want this hair to be a lot longer, so you have a lot more dominance in that hair when you're styling it, right? Because the thing is, the head dips like this. So if I trim the hair even, it ends up creating this one. They could be the same height as far as like the lengthwise, but this part of his head sits on a hill while this part sits on a dip. So this part, I gotta compensate for that and give a little bit more length in the front, so that way it sits on a flat platform together. So right here, just to make it simple for you guys, I'm not gonna section out too much right now, but here I'll lift the hair up and I'll create, again, there you could see it before, I was doing a square platform that comes out. And again, I'm not going even with the shape of the head because the head curves over here. I'm gonna just go flat over here and compensate longer hair in the front, so that way the top looks flat. But again, because the top is flat doesn't mean that all the hair is even, because that's not what we're doing. So again, right here, I'm just gonna come in, guys. And I usually section this a little bit better, but for the sake of the video, make it easy for y'all just to understand, I'm gonna go ahead and just go through the center of my head. And again, just pulling a little bit from the last section and continuing to work myself back. You can do a little bit of a lean downwards if you want, but you just wanna make sure that that line you're creating leaves the front being the most dominant part of the haircut. Towards the back, I'm also gonna kind of go for a square shape, slightly coming out. So the occipital bone is a great guide for that. So let me see if I can show you that real quick. So if I put the comb here on his head, it's gonna come up flat, but as you see me comb across it, you'll see the comb take angle. So I wanna try to cut at that angle and work into the top of that curve that I'm creating. Once I've created that line, I like calling it my Spartan helmet, I can then place myself behind my model. So then right here, come in here. And now using that center guide, I could use that to create a nice platform outwards at a slight lean down. So on this side, I'm gonna slightly lean down to create a transition for layering to come into the shorter hair on the side. And then on the other side, I won't lean as much because I do want that hair to stay a little bit longer. Then right here, again, coming up at a square shape. So from here, whenever I'm cutting up, guys, I am cutting straight towards the ceiling. Any hairs that hang that far over are probably just too long and don't really need to be a part of the style. So then on this side, guys, if you could tell, you can see where the hair has already been cut. I use that to continue my uniform layers across the top. And when I say uniform, I'm trying to make them similar to the hair in the middle. So instead of going straight across, because some barbers will create like a square out here, I'm gonna slightly angle it so that it goes with the same shape of his head. That way, all these hairs on this section of his head are trimmed to about the same length, and the layering looks a lot nicer. From what I've seen in the past, like when barbers go flat across like this and leave almost like a square here, you have like a weight line that gets centered right into the middle of their head. So right here, again, just working it down at a slight angle, using that Spartan helmet, as I like to call it, in the middle to reference my way out. After that, you can kind of cross-check Remember, cross-checking is really good to do just to make sure you don't have any long mountains that are kind of sticking up in between the haircut. And after that, I'll continue on to the blow drying part of this. So before I blow dry, what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to throw a little bit of hairspray into it. So this is our newest product. I'll make sure to link the product in the bio, in the description below. So right here, I'm just going to throw a little bit over the top. Nothing crazy, because again, I'm still wanting the hair to be pliable, flexible, and I could work with it, but it gives me a strong base for the style that I'm trying to create. So if you're not blow drying, guys, right here you could see where that base was created earlier, how I was lifting the hair up and cutting it so it all sits on a flat platform. That's why you want to overcompensate that front hair and give it a little bit more length, because again, it sits on the bottom of a curve. So blow drying really allows me to see the work that I've been creating and go from there. And again, this is just a little bit of the Helping Hand hairspray. Now that product is something I created because I didn't like dirtying my hands in the middle of this process with a little bit of product, because I do feel it is important to help style with a product because it gives you a base. So I wanted something that you could just, like, obviously, like if you saw the way I sprayed it on real fast, real easy, and I'm able to get right into blow drying, which I wasn't able to do before whenever I would use Mellow as a base. Not that Mellow is a bad base, but it is a little bit tedious when you're doing 10, 15, 20 cuts a day and you're consistently having to wash your hands or put Germ-X in the middle of a haircut. So that's why I've been doing Helping Hand. I've been working on it for a while now. I'm glad that it's finally out. Like I said, we're gonna have the link in the bio. I encourage y'all to check it out if you're doing any type of blow drying or styling. It is a great tool because, as you can see, his hair doesn't get sticky too much or anything. I'm still able to move it around, and that helps out a lot so that I can see the style without having it locked in and still work with it, because you're not all the way done with the haircut yet. So right here, you're gonna see me turn off the heat on my blow dryer. When you are blow drying, you want a little bit of heat so you can restructure the hair. Whenever hair's wet, it allows you to take a new shape and form. If you're blow drying dry hair, you're kind of just blowing air. You do want a little bit of moisture in the hair when you are styling, so that way you could start seeing how this haircut's looking a lot nicer. And again, now I can start seeing where I want to take out a little bit more texture, where maybe I want to leave a little bit more weight, and so on and so forth. All right, so right here, now that I have the hair dry, you can see that I can still run my fingers through it. And again, it just has a base to it. So I'm just gonna come in with my thinning shears. I like using thinning shears, especially for my students. I like teaching them how to thin with them. I'll cut one medium cut in, and then I'll go towards the tips again and cut that again, so that I create almost like levels to the texture that I'm creating and the weight that I'm reducing. So I'll take one cut there, and then I'll do one cut more towards the top, and maybe just at the fine parts of it. So whenever I texturize like this, guys, it's basically, imagine the New York City skyline and having a bunch of square buildings with like solid bases and solid tops, where the base is almost just as thick as the top. Now, imagine turning all of those into Eiffel Towers. So here you start to see where those thinner tops allow me to kind of move my fingers through the hair easier and just give them a different type of texture. So again, you want to do it controlled. If you see when I come in with my thinning shears, I think a lot of barbers go a little crazy with them sometimes. When you see me come in with my thinning shears, again, I'm just kind of combing through the hair, feeling it out, and I'll lift it. And remember, whatever you thin, you want to make sure that you could remove it by the next haircut. So you don't want to take off too much. You don't want to go thin all the way at the base. Remember, the Eiffel Tower progressively gets thinner. It's not like a thin bottom and then a really long point. I'm going to go ahead and just clean up my model a little bit, get all these hairs off of it. And again, the helping hand is meant to be a helping hand. It definitely helped me on this haircut. You could use any hairspray, guys. If you don't have one right now, I mean, some hairsprays are going to be a little stickier than others and tackier, but I don't, like, obviously that's why I came up with this one, so it's real flexible and easy on the hair. I am going to finish with a matte paste. Do you want shine? Do you like shine? Okay. Well, you know what? Let me show you the shine one. So I'm going to finish with the smooth. So matte paste mellow is the one that I use a lot more for like drier looks. On him, I know that he has a little bit of shine to him sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and grab just a little bit of smooth. It's a styling cream. This product's probably one of our more user-friendly ones. You always want to make sure though, guys, on any product you're using, you're really emulsifying it into your hands. I've seen a lot of people that have difficulty with product, and it's because they're not warming it up enough. And then they ask me like, hey, how do you get the hair to look like that? And it's a simple application. The way I'd compare it is kind of like peanut butter. Like if you get cold peanut butter and try to spread it onto like bread, you're gonna have a much harder time. You might even break the bread at some point. With this one, now since it's already kind of warmed up, I'm able to really run my fingers through the hair. And again, you start seeing, go ahead and tilt your head slightly, you start seeing all the texture that I put into the hair, especially towards the top part of it. And he still has a real thick base. And remember, when you thin out hair, all you're doing is making the top lighter, so it has more bounce and flexibility to it. You don't want to thin out too low to the base, because then you create problems later on. So like I said, a great mentor of mine once taught me, like, never thin out more than you could fix the next haircut. And I've kind of stuck by that rule my whole life. So there we go, a little bit of the smooth. And right now I'll go ahead and just detail it out, and I'll show you what that looks like in a bit. So right here, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my blow dryer with a texture comb and just real lightly, again with the blow dryer on cold, and just style the hair out, depending on what kind of look you're going for, guys. But just to really see an overall finished look. And again, I don't think this is anything unreasonable. I don't think people at their house are gonna have a hard time doing this. All right, so on this side again, that'll be my blow dryer. Again, just combing the product through, giving them a more finished look. I like using products like this because right here, I'm gonna comb these hairs down, and if I feel like it's too much weight, like right here, I can come in and do a little clipper over comb or guard work on it. But you won't know that until you put a little bit of product in. I kind of call it their true length. So again, just real nice finish on the product. Now that I have everything blow dried and styled, I'm just gonna go ahead and clean up a little bit of the corners on the edge up. And again, this is just so much easier to do once the hair has been blow dried and styled. I see barbers all the time trying to do edge ups on people with like a bunch of gel and everything like that, and it honestly is very difficult to edge up any hairline that has a bunch of gel in it or anything like that. Like, this is so much easier. So right here. Cleaning up the curve. And then just depending on like my clients, sometimes I'll throw enhancements, sometimes I won't, but I'm definitely looking at the long-term haircut to look good with or without anything. Because enhancements, again, guys, are just meant to enhance, not to create. So on this side, just work my way across. Just lightly again. So I've had people ask me like, man, when you do the edge up, it looks so easy. And it's like, yeah, because blow drying does that for me. I used to try to do edge ups with kids that had like gel and everything in it, and it does create a much more difficult process compared to like this. I have all the hair out of my way so that I protect as much long hair as possible, and I'm just lightly cleaning up the little baby hairs that are just not meant to go that way. So if your client doesn't get edge ups, I mean, you can fast forward through this part, but it's just something to know. And like I said, right now I'm gonna come in and just do a little bit of clipper over comb to do my final check on the cut and call it a day. So this is where I like using a lot more clipper over comb. So this is the Room Fade comb. I like it because it's red, so it allows me to kind of see the hair that needs to be trimmed down. So right here, same thing. So right here on this side, I could see this little bit of a line. I'm gonna try to not ruin the shot with my angle. And just again, trim these hairs down, creating a nice shape. And all this, guys, again, just becomes so much easier when you blow dry, style, check all the parts of the haircuts. Because if you do it with gel, it's just not gonna have the same overall look.